You lazy cow. What a way to start a video. But what a short sentence to say to yourself. This is a video about the self-talk that a lady had when she found it difficult to have some time for herself, and she'd feel guilty, would wrestle with that feeling, and I asked her to look for the thought that's attached to that feeling, and that's what came up. You lazy cow. That's what she tells herself. So how to reverse that, watch the video and you can see how you explore that and change that self-talk and change the output of it. We all have thoughts that circle around our mind all of the time. It's pretty incessant, and that's quite normal. The mind is as useful to us as the hands and the fingers and the toes and legs. It's running in the background and functioning all the time, mostly at an unconscious level, about 95%, some say about 70%, almost running programs. And it's not really meant to be conscious because we're totally overwhelmed with all the information. However, some of the programs that have been implanted become destructive. They might have had a purpose at the time for us to deal with the situation that needed dealing with, and we just used what we were given at the time to sort it. But thereafter, they're not helpful. And this is an example of that type of information that's encoded unconsciously. So this lady has chronic pain and has had a very difficult historical background of trauma. But you don't have to go backwards to go forwards. It's of interest when you're looking at what makes you the way you are. However, you don't have to kind of talk through the detail. But you have to be able to pick up salient moments, then think, right, I can see that's what happened, and this is what I'm going to do from this moment forward. So this lady had difficulty just sitting still, having time for herself, having rest and digest, and what would pop up would be that feeling of guilt. And I said to her, what do you feel now in this situation if you thought about sitting quietly on your own? And she said, I feel guilty. So that's a feeling. Now every thought has a feeling. Every feeling has an associated thought, but it may be unconscious. So I said, look for it. What's the thought that pops up when you feel guilty? And she paused for a little while and she went, you lazy cow. That's amazing that she stilled herself just for a moment to notice what pops up when she felt that feeling, and that's the thought that drives the feeling. Now when it's been repeated so many times, it becomes invisible. She may not recall the time it was first said to her, or she said it to herself, but you don't learn, you're not born with that thought. She's been told it, or she's heard it, she's seen it in somebody else, in their behaviours, and copied it. So it's become something that she thought is worthy of saying in moments when you are still. You lazy cow. Now that stimulates a feeling of, I shouldn't feel calm like this. I shouldn't feel okay to be sat on my own. I better get busy, and that creates a reaction. You lazy cow. Uncomfortable feeling. Get busy. You lazy cow. Uncomfortable feeling, get busy. Doesn't matter who said it to her. She's got a good idea, and they're long gone. But the programs keep running. Now, if that's okay, if it brings happy life, success, bliss, joy, playfulness, love, that's no problem, is it? But if it brings pain and effort and struggle and suffering, and the person keeps repeating the pattern because they can't see the invisible trigger of it, then to become aware of it is really key, because then you can say, is that a voice I want to keep following? Is that a feeling I want to keep feeling? And is that a reaction I want to keep doing? Because if that's creating pain, who's responsible for it? And that means that when that thought pops up, it's just a construct, a collection of neurons firing in a certain set of circumstances that the output is you lazy cow. That thought construct has a feeling construct, which is an emotion. Thoughts, emotion. If you're in the thought or you're in the emotion, you become the reaction without even realizing. So you always have to see the thoughts for what they are. That's not real. You have to see the emotion that you normally run from and get into the reactions. Say it's okay to feel that, and then you pass through it by observing the thoughts, observing the emotional charge where you feel it, and not reacting to either. Observing first, feeling the intensity of that feeling, and then choosing a response. And if it feels so overwhelming for some people, start with 3 breaths. As you notice the thought, you lazy cow, 2 or 3 breaths. It's not true. It's not true. A story I've told myself, and maybe I was told by somebody else before I was even conscious. So often these ideas are implanted before the age of 7. We have no conscious recollection because you don't have a conscious process in mind. It's unconscious. You'll feel the feeling and learn the behaviours to get out of that feeling, and they're encoded unconsciously. And so when life is calm and you have time for yourself, or life is painful and difficult and you should be taking time for yourself, in those moments of stillness, that voice in your head runs that program saying, this is what we do in this situation. You lazy cow, get busy. How could you ever recover from pain if that happened? And if you kept on running that pattern of behaviour, it'll create pain, and more likely persistent pain. So it was really interesting for this lady to see her self-talk pop up in front of her eyes. Know that that's not true. Know that she's worthy of some time for herself. Know that the feeling of guilt is okay to sit with. Let it do its thing. About 2 minutes of sitting with a sensation like that, knowing it's not real, and it'll pass. And if you breathe through it, and just use 3 breaths to start with, and there's loads of other things you can do, but the process is becoming aware of the triggers of your behaviour, so you don't just become an Autobot following programs from the past that create your pain. What's your self-talk, and could you start to change it?